Hello, everybody, and thank you again for joining me, Ben Calder, as I'm here to give another one of these interviews for the BTPA, the Bowen Therapy Professional Association here in the UK. Today, I'm really excited to have Lindsay Holder with me, who is based down in Malvern in the Midlands down there. And Lindsay is not only for the last 18 years Bowen therapist, but she is also a Smart Bowen instructor, lead instructor here in the UK, and teaches both the canine and the equine work as well as having a broader interest in nutritional work, using cold laser both with animals and humans, and biochemic tissue salts, and also works with functional breathing with her clients as well. She's also really involved in doing kind of research and study and understanding through horses with Sharon May-Davis, one of the leading anatomists and research scientists in the equine industry. And they undertake horse dissection work, which is really interesting. We get into that later in the interview, and you can learn more about that in her Whole Horse Health website. We'll have all the links for those in our video descriptions. But right now, let's get into that interview with Lindsay. I hope you enjoy this. Hi, Lindsay. Thank you for joining me today. Really appreciate you coming and giving your time.
No, thank you. And thank you for doing this. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem at all. It's really exciting as well, because not only do you have this really nice broad area of Bowen work, but you're the first person that we've put in these interviews yet that is doing the canine and the equine stuff. So I'm really interested to talk about that, but we'll get to that a little bit later on into the process. And we'll look forward to learning more about, because there's a really wide field of stuff that you've done. So I think just to help with people who've maybe not come across your work before, give us a little bit of an introduction about how you got to where you are today. What got you involved in physical therapy, and what was your introduction into Bowen?
Okay. Well, where do I start? I suppose mine is a bit different to most people. I wasn't a therapist already. I hadn't had any experience of therapies. I'm just a horse mad young person. I go to a horse show every year, and I came across this stand that said Bowen. I was like, Bowen? I don't know, let's have a look. And I always wanted to work with horses, treat horses' backs, be the back lady, that's what I want to do. But couldn't actually find anything local to me or where I was. So I came across Bowen and I thought, oh, this sounds good. And of course, you've got to treat people first. And I was like, oh, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. Okay. And that was it. Carried on my day, enjoying the show. Never thought about it again. The next year I went to the show and there was this Bowen stand again. And I was like, oh, I remember these people last year. So I got some more information. And I was currently at uni doing Equine Sciences. And I had some money left of my student loan. And I was currently, as you do when you're a teenager at uni, kind of wasting a lot of the money, going out, having a drink. So I thought, I'm going to spend this wisely. So I did two things with that money. I bought my horse saddle and paid to do the first part of my Bowen training in humans. So I toddle along, not having a clue, and all these people are there with all these profound reasons to why they're there and how Bowen's helped them. And I was a bit like, wow, I just heard that I've got to do humans before I can do horses, and felt a bit daft, really. But did it and had a great time, and realised, the people that I'd seen as my case studies, they're like, oh, you've helped me with this, you've helped me with this, you've helped me with this. And I only came with a bit of a bad back when I'm riding. I was like, really? It's like, wow, imagine what I can do if I actually know what I'm doing, as opposed to just being told to do this move here and this move here. So that was what got me started. And then I decided I wanted to continue and have a clinic with people before I went on to do my animal training, which is what I did. And I did my animal training a few years later. Again, really enjoyed it, but I was a bit like, okay, I need more. Why isn't there any more? And carrying on through my clinic and through my CPDs, I came across Randy teaching the Smart Bowen. And I was like, oh, I love this. This is really good. And he told me that they did equine, but it wasn't in this country and it probably wouldn't come to this country. So straight away I was like, right, we'll see about that. So it was a lot of emails, a lot of conversations with Leah and Brian. And to cut a long story short, I ended up going out to Australia and staying with them. And I ended up going to do the equine, but I ended up doing all of it because I basically ate, slept, breathed Bowen for the entire time I was there. And it was just an absolutely fantastic experience. You know, I'm so grateful for that experience and those moments that I had with both Leah and Brian. And they're just fantastic people in so many ways. And that was really the start of my Smart Bowen journey. And in between all of this, I did a bit of NST here, and I've dabbled in quite a few of the different styles, shall we call it, and enjoyed a few of them. But really, Smart Bowen stuck with me as I love this one. This gets me better results quicker, and stuck with it. And then I went back out to see Leah and Brian in 2016, and again on that journey, I met a lady called Sharon May-Davis, who's like a world-renowned science anatomist in the equine world. And then I went down another rabbit hole of doing lots of equine dissections with her. And before you know it, here I am with like 18 years of Bowen experience behind me and thinking, wow, how did that happen?
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that was actually going to be one of my questions there, was how long that journey had taken from being the student deciding what she's doing with the last parts of her student loans to getting to this point for 18 years. What a beautiful journey. And so nice as well that after having no real initial impetus to want to, really work with humans in the way that you do now, to finding it a really useful thing and seeing the value in that. It's again, it just goes to show us that I think that the technique itself and the act of working with people in the way we do, adds something into our lives that not a lot of other jobs give you the same kind of relationships and the same kind of connections as doing something like this.
Yeah, and nothing's been hard. It's just happened, and I've just met these fantastic people along the way. And I just think, oh my God, I'm so blessed to have met these people. And then through meeting those people, I've met other people. And when I was out in Australia, I did half a day in Graham's clinic, and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you, just to be able to sit and watch, see how that clinic works, and for Brian and all of his just taking me everywhere. This was where Tom lived. This was where his clinic was. This is that. And a complete honour for him to be able to just take that time out and just show me all of those amazing places. So, yeah, fantastic, all of it. Just so grateful for all of it.
Yeah, beautiful. And, interesting as well, the way you talked about having dabbled in styles. I kind of like that. And, again, I was with Graham Pennington over the summer. He was here in the UK and lucky enough to do his targeting primary dysfunction workshop with him, which was just crazy stuff and really interesting.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, sure. I've got an article that I'm going to be having in Touch magazine coming out on the next edition about that. And just the results from that. But having dabbled in styles, as you said, you've done NST as well. So we interviewed Michael Nixon-Livy earlier in the year as well, so we talked a bit about that. But tell me a little bit for you what it is about Smart Bowen that, because again, personally, I don't even understand the difference in the practice with Smart Bowen. I've not experienced it. As far as I'm aware, I've not been treated by anybody who's been trained in Smart Bowen. So just give me a kind of an explanation from your point of view about how you see Smart Bowen and what you feel the differences are with some of the other styles and why for you that is a value.
Okay. So I always remember when I qualified, I had a real issue with shoulder problems. And everybody kept coming to me with shoulder problems. And I was like, oh my God, this is my nemesis. Like, this is the universe telling me I need to sort my shit out and I need to learn how to sort shoulders. Kept having these people come through with shoulder problems. And I was just told, well, this is the shoulder procedure. This is what we do. And I was like, yeah, but what happens if it's a frozen shoulder? What happens if they've got restriction here or restriction there? Well, this is the shoulder procedure. And I was like, that's not helpful. Whereas when I did the Smart Bowen, they were like, well, we are looking at trigger points, we're looking at pain referral patterns. So if somebody comes in and they have pain referral in this area, then it's likely to be this muscle and this muscle's problem. So here's a move for this muscle and this muscle. But if it's this muscle, then we've got to move for here and here. And I'm like, God, that's what I need. I needed a bit more firm science of when you have pain in this area, this is where the pain will generally refer. And when you have pain in this area, this is where it will generally refer. So then now all of a sudden I was knowing which muscles were involved and how I can work out where those pain patterns are. So straight away, I'm getting to the points I need to. I don't have to do just this little move here on the shoulder and let's see how you get on. I was making sure I had a change before they left the clinic. And then the next time they came, like, it was fantastic. It helped so much. But I've still got a tweak here, or we need to work on this. Obviously, it's not a miracle. It's not going to get rid of it instantly. But I was just having much better results, and I was understanding why they were still having pain in certain areas. And I was thinking, yeah, I couldn't release that very well. It was really tight, but I've got to let the body do its bit now. So I was just getting results quicker. So what I would normally get in, say, 4 or 5 sessions, I was now getting in maybe 2 sessions. Yeah. So people were feeling better and they were like, oh, this is fantastic. And then I was getting more referrals from people who had been to see me because, oh, so-and-so had this problem and she only saw you twice. And, and then you're in a position where you're like, well, that might not be your experience. I'm not a magician. I don't have a magic wand, but we can see what we can do and let's see if we can find where those primary problems are for you. Mm-hmm. And that was my journey, really. That was what made me think, yes, okay, this is what I need. I needed that bit more information as to what we're doing and how we're affecting the body.
Yeah. Your shoulder situation there sounds a little bit like people who don't like cats, and whenever they're around, the cats are always like drawn into them. It's kind of like, you will love us. You will find a way to do it. I mean, do you think that any of that difference as well, because again, we're talking about an 18-year time scale. Do you think that some of that is also partly that difference in how certain schools have embraced information around manual therapy from different sources, and rather than I kind of got a sense that back in the day that Bowen in some ways in the UK was a little bit closed to taking information from other sources, and so we weren't necessarily using it to inform why a thing did a thing or to understand the relationships. I mean, again, Penno's work is a good example of that, understanding that dural drag is a big difference in why you might be getting problems in different places and how those moves can be releasing things in other places. So you can have those patterns developing. And again, I agree with you at that in my early days of training, which was only 2010, 2011. So, not as experienced as you in this. But it was a bit like, well, this is what we do for that. This is how this works. That's for that. But, it didn't. And, I was already, what was I, kind of 7-8 years into being a professional kinesiologist at that point. I've been doing kinesiology for nearly 10 years. So understanding muscle meridian relationships is a very different thing for me at that point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so many. You touched on loads of different things there. So when I trained, I had no experience in any of those fields, absolutely none. I was out there, Bowen can do everything, and then slowly realizing, oh, hang on, okay, let's be realistic. What can I do? How can I help? Where do I need to learn more? All of that's really important. And then with the Smart Bowen and Brian's experience and Leah's experience, they both had a really interesting careers which have helped them to produce Smart Bowen as Smart Bowen is today. So that's when I slowly learned a little bit about TCM and the meridians, and all of these different elements slowly came into my work through, oh, well, what's that? And my business partner at the Centre for Wellbeing is a kinesiologist. And I was like, oh, I need to know about this. Look at, this is really helpful. This could really help me. So I've then learned of all these people that are around me and through my own experiences as well. Like I always say, my animals are my teachers. And my dog has had slip discs in his time where I've been told, you need to go and have surgery and it's the only option. And I was like, we're not doing that, so I took him to a homeopathic vet. He did laser and gentle manipulation. I was like, what is that? What is that laser? I need to know what that is. So that then got me involved in laser, and then my horse was really lame for ages and nobody could tell me what the problem was. Kept telling me, oh, your horse is laminitis. I was like, no, it's in the feet, but it's not a foot problem. And everyone thought I was mad. And then I was starting to think, am I mad? Have I got really wrong? And then I had a kinesiologist come out and was like, there's your problem. And I'm like, what? I've been trying to find a problem for like over 2 years, and I hold him together a little bit with Bowen and then he'll fall apart. And then he'd be somewhere else and he'd be fine and be like, it's because you're not moving him enough. And I'd be like, no, I am. And I was thinking, I'm literally going mad. But then realizing that the problem was I didn't have enough copper in my ground, and that was creating the lameness in my horse. And if it wasn't for the kinesiologist, I never would have known that. So then I was like, I need to know what you just did. You're not going anywhere until you tell me how I can learn this from you. So that was another rabbit hole I went down. So I think all of those different experiences make you, and of course, doing Bowen for many years, you understand what tissue is supposed to feel like. Whereas when I qualified, I hadn't got a clue whether it was normal tissue, not normal tissue. I just thought, is that just unique to you, or is that what a problem feels like? So over time, that experience helps, and that's why for me, with Smart Bowen and from a teaching point of view, I want to incorporate all these things, and I think it's really important that when you train, you get all this information and you don't go out into the big wide world and think, oh God, what do I do?
Yeah.
Help them succeed as Bowen therapists. And also then the world will see Bowen as this fantastic modality, as opposed to, oh, some people aren't very good, but other people are good.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's, especially on that last point you made there, I think there's a challenge. And, I know when I've spoken to Graham Pennington, to Michael Nixon-Livy, to Ron Phelan, we're all talking about this need for time, that we can't develop that sensory acuity, our knowledge base, our experience, even in some of the best teaching situations, there's only so much that as a student you can take on board and you can really accommodate into your understanding. And especially, as you were kind of having not got other therapeutic experience at the point, there's something about time and the amount of bodies under your fingers and the amount of tissue through your fingers that develops that acuity that you just can't get from, I would say probably any training course. You can listen and you can be shown and you can kind of have a sense, but a bit like learning to drive, isn't it? It's like the first time somebody sets you free and you're out there, that's when that experience really starts to develop.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we've got to put as much in place as possible to make them going away feeling confident in that they will get to feel that. And, again, that's a big part of our training, is that they have to do so many case studies, but on top of that, they have to do other, certainly with the animal side of thing, they have a booklet where they have to fill 50 treatments that they've done. So we're not talking just here's your 20 case studies. I want to know that they've had their hands on lots of horses. And as you say, only time will tell. So you can see students who come through the door who haven't had their hands on, say, oh, yeah, I have. And others that have really been going out and constantly giving it a go and just seeing what they feel.
Yeah. And I guess as schools, part of what, and again, I'm seeing this with Bowen College, I'm seeing this with CBS, that they're trying now to put in place a lot more information and support so that as students graduate, as students head out, the lack of experience is okay, because the college is there to support you, and that if you need to, you can refer back and say, yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, I'm not sure how I'm working with that, because again, sponges can only absorb so much in any one go. So it's that having that time to build that up over years, really.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And I think, I don't know how some of the schools are doing it now, because there's been lots of change, hasn't there? And I only know CBS as it was when it was ECBS when I trained,
Yeah.
and my experience of that. But yeah, I think the good thing is we're all heading in the right direction of we all want to work together, and I can offer something and they can offer something else, and constantly saying to my students, go and try the other schools. You've got to experience other ways of doing the technique, and you everyone finds what works for them and their niche.
Yeah, sure. And also some teachers, just their delivery method is easier to absorb for some people than it is for others. And we all have our ways of learning that are particular. And whether you're visual, whether you're auditory, whether you do better with written materials, it's all that just gently building that knowledge base and experience over time that and I love the fact that you're encouraging your students as well to explore other stuff, because I think we can sometimes have a risk of becoming too attached to an ideology, to an idea, and I think the healthiest teachers are the ones that are there saying, yeah, well, this is one approach, and if you have a look at some of the others, then you can work out for you how you think, how you feel, the types of clients you want to see, which approach is giving you the results that you're looking for. And there's kind of less attachment, there's less trying to grasp this we're right, they're wrong, kind of attitude. But and it's really nice for me to see this much more holistic, open process coming. And and I get a sense that more of the teachers now, especially in the UK at the colleges, are all happy to interrelate with each other in ways where in the past it was all a bit me and them.
Yeah, absolutely. And many years ago I was on the BTPA, as an associate member, at the same time that Joe was, and we both kind of went and did our teaching. So we've got that connection and that friendship already. So I'm certainly not going to say, oh, you can't go and see them because she teaches for them now. It's just not what I do. And Joe's been onto one of my dissections and seen how that works, and I've been on her training courses. And I think as well as a teacher, I'm always the student as well. I'm always on a training course, and I joke with some of my students all the time about how I need to stop doing all these courses because there's always something I want to do.
Yeah.
Because there's just isn't there? There's just so much out there, and I just want to know more and more.
Yeah. But I kind of love that about my job as well. I love the fact that, it's been 21 years now that I've been professional as a kinesiologist, and I've still got a training program ahead of me that's as long as my arm, because there's more stuff happening and there's more stuff available, and I'm super excited. There was a course came up through the International Association of Specialized Kinesiology over the summer to work with an Australian kinesiologist who is sharing a 4,000-year-old pattern within acupuncture and how he uses it in kinesiology. And his intro talk was just like, that's super exciting. Sign me up, I'll do that. And it's so nice just to listen to these other ideas and to still have this sense of still being the student, still growing, still learning. And again, it's great that you're also offering that to your students and encouraging them in that process, that it's not right, you did your 5 modules or however it's divided down, you got your ticket, now you're done. Your CPD is one of those things you have to do to keep your membership or whatever. It's be excited about the things you're doing and be passionate, and you get a job for life then.
Absolutely. And I'm very lucky in that some of the other instructors have allowed us to incorporate some of their teaching styles or their assessment styles within the Smart Bowen. So that as well, I feel like my students can go away feeling more confident that they can do this. Even though they haven't got that experience necessarily behind them, they can still confidently know they're going to achieve change.
Right.
And everything's growing all the time, isn't it? We're always adapting and changing the way we teach stuff, adding stuff in all the time. And then anyone who's trained, anyone can come and do the CPD with us and just learn these other little bits that are really important.
Yeah, sure. Tell me a little bit more about that. What are the incorporations? What are the other bits, the other assessment things that you've been allowed to incorporate?
Okay, well, like yourself, I've done Graham's course last year. And Graham was really kind enough to say that we could add some of that assessment stuff into the undergraduate training so that people can go away and like, look, you can see you've made a change in this client. Go ahead, let them go. Let's see what the body brings back next time, and don't feel, because sometimes I think people go, oh, let's just see what happens. See you next week. You think, oh God. Whereas I feel like with those assessment protocols that he puts in place, you're really seeing what you've done. You're not waiting and hoping for the best. You're seeing you've done something, and that gives the student a huge amount of confidence. And then they're confident in what they're doing. And I always say, you're selling yourself. You're not selling the treatment when it comes really to Bowen or any treatment. People come to see you because they get on with you, and obviously you've got to be able to do your job. But ultimately, if they didn't like you or you didn't gel well, they'd go to another practitioner. So you're never selling the technique, you're selling yourself. That's how you're getting your clients. And if you're confident in the technique and you're confident in yourself, you're going to be better at doing that as well as being better at the technique because you're confident that you can see the change.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important. I mean, it's one of the things. So I was IOS trained, importance of symmetry trained a couple of years back with Robert Smith. Great training with him. Really changed how my practice was after, kind of still following the standard pattern, as it were. And then with Graham this summer, and then just a couple of weekends ago, doing my last, I go and work a lot of festivals over the summer and just share Bowen there and teach Qigong and talk about stuff. And it really gave me a chance. I did nearly 60 treatments over the weekend and had an opportunity to just put that targeting primary dysfunction work right into practice. Yeah. And one of the things I found about it was it also gave me a different level of confidence to know that on that session I've done enough.
Yeah.
That I don't have to add another thing in just in case. There's a response that's really visible from the body. No more fluffing needed. You can stop there.
Yeah. If you do too much, then you're dampening down the response anyway, I think, and I've got clients who come for an hour and it's like a relaxation. It's their time and they are looking at the clock every 5 minutes. I'm getting my hour's worth, which I don't like working like that. And then I've got other people who come who are quite happy to be out the door within half an hour or even 20 minutes. They just want to be sorted and they want to leave, and I've got some people who are in, this one lady in particular, bless her, we have a joke that I've never had anyone like her. She's so ticked, I can barely touch her. I'm like, how am I supposed to help you? And we joke about it, but I'm so quick with her. I do this, I do what I need to do, and she's gone, and she comes back saying, it's amazing, and she really loves it. And she's one of the shortest time spans of clients I have, and yet she's like over the moon. So it's not about how long you spend. It's they want the results at the end of the day. There are a few, of course, who enjoy that more of a pampering.
Yeah.
And you just got to try and accommodate the best you can. But I do always say you're paying for your session, and your session is what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be any time.
Yeah. And do you find then with clients like that, do you then use that additional time, as it were, sometimes as the opportunity to discuss the nutrition stuff, the tissue salts? Is that where you would use laser work with people as well? Tell me a little bit more about how you incorporate those aspects into your practice.
Yeah, I don't push people to have, I think you need this, or I think you need this. I always say, look, this is an option. If we feel that there's a problem that's not resolving quick enough, I can say, look, we've got these other options available. And if I'm completely honest, I use my laser and stuff more with the animals than I do with people. Because I think people are more open to trying stuff on their animals, and then they come and they say, I want this, and that's what I want, Mm-hmm. So it's a bit more difficult. But whenever I've used my laser, people always, it speeds up that cell recovery. It just enhances the treatment that I give. And generally it's people who have had surgeries or real catastrophic kind of injuries, shall we say, that are life-changing, and then it really helps them to be able to coordinate or to have no pain in an area where they've had pain for many, many years. So I find it a real benefit, but I don't have it with me all the time, simply because my lasers cost so much money. I'm nervous to have it in the car, quite honestly, because if anything ever happened to it, be crying for weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always talk to them about, if you're not getting the results, then we've got to look at why. But I try not to say to them, well, why do you think that is? I just say, well, we talk about all those things. We talk about nutrition, we talk about water, we talk about stress and how they manage that in their life. And where do we feel the problem lies, as it were, without saying it? Because sometimes people just can't manage their stress well, and therefore they keep coming back with the same problem. And no matter how much body work I do, unless they deal with that side of things, you're just kind of putting a plaster on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
That realization themselves as well. And some do, some do. And then because I'm very lucky in where I work, we're a multidisciplinary centre. So if I feel that they need counselling or they need anything else, I can say, well, there's all the leaflets out here, there might be someone else that can help you and support us through your journey that you're going through. And that's a big thing, I think, lately with all mental health. I always think, well, we should have more in our training about how we cope with that and how we deal with that training, because we're not trained up as counsellors and how to help people, but you have to have a degree of that within your practice, I think. And but equally, I do think you attract a certain type of person. I might get certain people, and someone else might only get people with sports injuries, and they don't want to talk about all that. Oh, that never happens to me. So I do think there is an element of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like you've got to be prepared for it, because I've had it a few times where I think, oh my God, can I cope with this level of offloading? And are they going to be okay when they leave here? So
it's a tricky one to manage sometimes as well for us as practitioners. Sometimes the process itself and what people are releasing, that's quite potent stuff to be present with.
Yeah, and that's where my breathing stuff comes in. So I'll talk to them about how they can breathe and how they can help release emotions through their breath work. Or again, I have a few athletes who come to me before races, for example, and they always say, whenever I come to you, like 5-10 days before, I always get my best speeds. And equally, we work on the breath, and then they can work and they can perform better as well. So I think breathwork's really good, because if you don't have functional breathing, you don't really have a functional body. And again, that's what brought me to breathing in the first place. Why are these people not responding? And I was thinking, well, they're not breathing properly. And if they haven't got functional breathing, then they can't have a functional body. And oh, well, I need to know how to do functional breathing,
So how do you
another rabbit hole.
So how do you define functional breathing as a model? What is it that you're looking at? What are you assessing? And what how are you then leading the clients into changing that?
So sometimes if people express an interest in it, we'll do what we call your volt score, so your body level oxygen test, and then I basically just see how well they are breathing and show them where they should be. And then we just do simple like yogi exercises, holding with one, breathing in, breathing out, and starting off really, really quite simply, and then encouraging them to say, okay, well, we've got exercises that you do when you're walking, and see if you can improve that volt score. And once we improve it by, I think it's something like 3 to 5 seconds, they will physically feel the change in the body. Sometimes people sigh a lot. And again, these will be questions I ask. How often do you catch yourself sighing? And, oh yeah, I do that all the time, and then they go, oh yeah, okay. And for me as well, if you're encouraging them to understand what that dysfunction is in them, they go, oh yeah, I noticed it this week. Since you told me about it, I noticed that I sigh all the time. And they go, oh, okay, right. So I say, well, if you sigh, then hold your breath for 10 seconds and then carry on breathing, and it'll counteract that. So, oh gosh, okay. So we just start small. Whereas if people are quite heavily into sports, then we can give them exercises for when they're jogging, and a lot of really simple stuff, like just close your mouth. Don't breathe with your mouth. When you go for a walk, make sure you keep your mouth closed. And if you need to breathe with your mouth, then stop and get your breath back through nose before you carry on. And I'm asthmatic myself, so I know what it's like when you can't breathe and you want to just kind of, And again, my son has taken me down that route of, he was always congested, and I was like, oh my God, he's mouth breathing. Like, I need to stop this, and how I can help them. But it's really hard to change your breathing pattern. So just giving them real little exercises to turn it the right way, and then we just keep working on it, really.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
where I start with that bulk test of seeing how well they can hold their breath without holding their breath, because all we have to do really is take a breath in, breathe out, and then just wait until your body tells you need to breathe. So you're not waiting to see how long you can hold your breath for. You're waiting until your body's saying, right, I want you to breathe now.
Yeah.
And again, another kind of rabbit hole, but I did the whole Wim Hof bit of training with them and the cold ice baths, and I found that amazing. And I was like, wow, I find it difficult just to get people to have cold showers, but me, I always say it's really hard to begin with. But if you just stick with it, you can really feel the benefits. And I totally get that it's hard to have a cold shower, because I hate having a cold shower. But if I plunge into cold water, I find it so much easier, because once you're in, you're in.
Mm-hmm.
You then just got to focus on your breath. But in the shower, you're constantly getting hit by cold water everywhere, and all these senses of cold, and you have to keep turning around, front, back, side. And I find that harder, but that's just my personal opinion. So I always tell everybody my personal opinion of cold showers, so that they don't think they're alone in it, and just do 15 seconds, see how you get on. And they always come back and saying that they feel better in themselves, and slowly bringing down that inflammation if done correctly.
Yeah, sure. And super powerful techniques as well. I mean, my brother gave me a beautiful formula for cold showering to teach you to condition up to it that works really, really quickly. And that's obviously have your ordinary warm shower first of all, switch yourself over to cold, strong exhales as it's happening. And as soon as you feel like you've had enough, go back to warm again, warm up again, then go back to cold a second time, strong exhales, let it all go. Take it as long as you can, go back to warm again. And then when you're warmed up, go back to cold for your third time. And most of the time, that third one doesn't even feel cold. It's a really interesting reaction through the nervous system. And then if you need to, you can stick a warm in at the end of that. And I find within as little as a week, people are just not even bothering to turn back to warm anymore. They're back onto cold. But it's so important as well, this regulation of the system and the breathing. I mean, in Qigong, we're always encouraging our students to look for that point where, did you hold your breath in that movement? Did you catch your breath? Is it feeling uncomfortable breathing through that process? And just that importance of shoulder facilitation as well. I often describe shoulders as like American footballers' pads sitting on top of your lungs. So if your shoulders can't move freely, then you're not going to be able to breathe properly because of the implication of all that tissue, front, back, side, that has that effect on your ribs as well.
Absolutely. I'm only just getting into Qigong at the moment, and I really love it. I'm doing a bit between our training, which I'm not really sure why I'm doing it, but when you just think I'm drawn to that, I need to do that because the guy who teaches me is incredible, and all of that information that comes with it is incredible. So he's a really fascinating chap, and I love the whole TCM and how it incorporates to the Bowen world. So that's something I'm working on a lot at the moment, and understanding why we do moves where we do moves and how it relates to a TCM point of view. So it's really cool, and I love the Qigong, and I tell my clients about it, and they're like, what you what? And I say, well, Tai Chi. Well, kind of, yeah,
Yeah, it's always the inroad, isn't it? It's a bit like Tai Chi, but not quite the same. Yeah, sure. You'll have to come next year on to our retreat. We have a retreat in September now. So my teacher is over from Bali. We just had it a couple of weeks ago over in Snowdonia. So we do a real deep dive into Qigong. So I'll have to let you know about that. But
awesome.
Again, I see it as a beautiful practice incorporating so well with Bowen Technique. And I see it almost like it's my self-treatment way as well. So in the places I can't work, I can use that mindful movement as a way to kind of transform how my body is. I use it as assessment within myself as well, because I'm noticing where am I holding tension, what feels open, what's allowing me to move, and what's kind of encouraging me to just be nice, be quiet, be gentle. So it's a super useful modality and integrates so nicely with Bowen Technique. So I'm glad that you found that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I always used to send people to Pilates or yoga to kind of do stuff, but I'm so much more into now the natural movement, because people always talk about, oh, when you get older, you need to get strong and you need to do this and that. And I'm like, yeah, but you need to be flexible. Like, can you get down and like hop like a frog? Can you do that? Like, oh, what? Why would I want to do that? And I'm like, because you can't do it. Like, you've got to be able to be flexible, and people are only now, I think it's becoming a bit of a buzz. It's just starting to come up, but it's so important that people learn how to be flexible and not just I can hold a plank for 30 seconds though, or a minute, it's like, well, that's great as well.
Yeah.
You've got to have that flexibility and be able to move.
Yeah, sure. And I don't think a lot of people really understand how much a lot of strength is based in tension. And when they're doing strength training, there's a lot of contractive movement in there, and there's very little opening taking place. And you kind of made a reference about yoga and people doing their planks. A lot of people don't even realize that most Western yoga is still based very heavily in old kind of colonial, British Raj type exercises from India from years ago that are not really the natural flowing soft spaces that we would have been in. They've got quite old kind of gymnastic military basis to them, which is all about conditioning you so you can work harder. And that's not necessarily, especially I think as we age, my Qigong teacher and we really look at it as our formula for a vital life as we go forward in life, and being able in our extended age to still be able to do things. Not that I'm that old yet, but the point is making the investment now and developing the conditioning for my body now is going to serve me. And certainly, we understand from research that your health in your 50s is one of the key indicators as whether or not you make it to your 80s. Poor health in 50s, likelihood of getting to 80s is pretty low. Good health in your 50s, much higher likely of getting into your 80s. So, being able to incorporate these different aspects is really important. And I'm kind of curious as well with the tutor that you're experiencing, whether or not they've introduced you to the fascia sinew channels as well. The really old school Chinese pathways that, Tom Myers' work seems very much based in that idea of the fascia sinew channels and their importance within work as well.
Definitely. And how they're not that interested in muscles, you got to strengthen those ligaments, the tendons, and it's like, well, yeah, it just makes sense. Absolutely. There's a lot that I'm really enjoying at the moment. So
yeah, beautiful.
It all works nicely.
So let's take ourselves onto a different side of this as well now. So we've been talking a lot in more general terms, but again, I love dogs. Dogs are beautiful. I've got a real thing for things like the staffies and the bullies and the Frenchies. I like a little beef dog, a little short-haired beef structure to me. It's always nice to feel that musculature. Horses are beautiful. I've only ridden a couple of times in my life, and I think Rowan Atkinson in Blackadder kind of described my horse riding, that he was referring to one of his other characters in Blackadder. He said, rides a horse rather less well than another horse might. So, it's not an area that I delve into. I've done a little bit of kinesiology with dogs and with horses, but and obviously your initial passion was in the equine world. You're at university studying equine science there. So tell me how that journey into equine and canine Bowen has been for you. Why is it different to humans as well? I mean, anatomically there's some basics and obvious stuff in there, but what's the real difference and what's the commonality within that?
Well, if you know your anatomy and you know what a Bowen move, of course you can apply it to an animal, as far as I'm concerned. I just, for me, working with the animals, you learn to get that intuitive feel, because the horses don't care. They're not here with an agenda. They'll just say it as it is, and they'll show you where it is if you are listening. You have to just be able to. Anyone can do Bowen on a horse, but you have to be able to listen. In my opinion, you have to be able to ask as well. So many people just go in and say, right, I'm going to do this. Right, I'm going to do, thinking of where they've got to be next. I've got an hour here with this horse, and then I've got to get onto that horse. Pick your foot up. I need to see your foot. Pick your foot up. Come on. And they force it up. Whereas I don't do any of that. And sometimes owners look at me a little bit like, can you not even pick my horse's foot up? And I always say to them, no, I can make him pick it up, but I'm asking him if I can have it. I'm asking him if he minds letting me have a look at his foot. And they often want you to have it in a particular order. So, no, I don't want you to have that foot. I want you to go around to that other foot first. I'm like, okay. Then they'll lift their foot up. And if you listen properly listen that first time, they will give you so much more. They will just give you everything. And I just feel honoured to be able to work on these creatures, because they're just amazing. So amazing. Sometimes I do hardly anything, and I think, really? Is that all you need? And I'm like, well, he's telling me it is. So like, okay. And then you feel a bit like, oh God, can I tell them I'm done? But I've just gone with that and gone, yeah, I can. And then the next time I'm like, wow, like such different. And I think, God, that's awesome, And I've had people where the chiropractor's been out, the physio's been out, and can't get to the bottom of this problem, and I'm hoping you can help. Otherwise, it's going to be put down. And you think, oh God, no, not too much pressure. And then you go in, you think, okay, right, and then you unravel one layer, and then something else comes out. But the owners then see enough of a change to go, oh, okay, this is definitely worth a try. So that's why I love working on animals, really. And again, with the dogs, sometimes I find that cats are really responsive as well. A lot of people say, oh, cats, they're not very good. And I'm like, really? I've never had that experience with cats. I just find they probably don't want you anywhere near them. So you have to be a bit more, no, you're not leaving the room, but you can move around, but you're not leaving this room, And I literally can be 5-10 minutes with the cat. And then I say, okay, that's it. And again, great responses. I used to treat a cat who used to be on maximum amount of morphine it could be on. And when at the end of its days, it was on the smallest amount that it could be on. And it didn't end up being put to sleep because of its physical issues. It was actually another issue in the end. And it's just amazing. You think, well, I would go there and I'd be there 10 minutes. And the cat's done all the work because I'm just facilitating that change for them. Wow. Sometimes you just need a gentle hold. And they go, okay, you're bringing my awareness to where the problem is. And that's it. That's all you need to do. And the body can do the rest. So that's what I love about them. They're just so open to allowing you to work if you listen. And I think if you don't listen, they'll just shut you out. And I've learned that through experience. I've gone in like, I've got to do this, right? I've got to get this done. And I think, oh, he's not giving me anything. Oh God, what is it gonna work? I don't know. But then when you go in with an open mind and you just let it happen, it just happens. And I think again, my horses being my teachers have shown me that. I've got 2 young kids now, and it's like, have I got time to treat my old horse? Well, he's 27. The poor boy needs something. I've just got 10 minutes while the kids are running around, swinging sticks around them, and you think, they can hardly relax that much, but they're used to my kids now.
Yeah.
And I remember doing just a really small amount of work, thinking, oh, sorry, lad, I'll try and do some more tomorrow. Then the next day, striding in from the field, not at all lame, where he'd been lame for a couple of weeks. I kept going, I will find the time. And I was like, it just shows me that 5-10 minutes was all he needed, and he was good again. And again, I've incorporated the kinesiology after having that copper issue with my horse. Again, my horses just like to teach me everything. I get all the difficult situations at home. But that's why I also find it difficult to treat my own horses sometimes, because literally it's like you can't see the wood for the trees. Oh my God, what do I do? Oh, I can't treat my own horses. But then you just have to get in there and get it done.
Yeah. So how, I love that way that you're describing that you're listening. And And it's interesting, in Qigong, we have a term which is ting, which is to be aware of. And another translation of that is to listen to. And we often incorporate it as ting jing, which is to listen to the physical essence. And
Yeah.
it's that awareness of the internal felt sense within us. But how do you teach that? What are you actually trying to, when you're describing, because it's not like, you're going to stick an ear onto the horse and listen. So what are you noticing in the animal and in yourself that allows you to make that connection?
Well, it's taken me a long time to come round to the spiritual side of things. If you speak to any of my close Bowen buddies, they'll always be like, "Oh yeah, if anything emotional, anything, don't go to Lindsay," because I'm like, no, don't bring all that work here. But it's constantly there, being put in my face, and I'm like, okay, I've got to listen to this. So I follow people like there's a podcast called The Journey On podcast with Warwick Schiller. I listen to him all the time, and it's a horse podcast, but it's never about horses. It's all about that spirituality. And he has been a driving factor, and the people that he's interviewed, I've then followed, and he has his own library where you can watch all of his stuff and learn how he does it. But just listening, simple things like if a horse just even remotely turns his head or looks at you slightly, and I just stop and I'll step back as if to say, I hear you. You've got your concern of me being there. I'll just wait for you. And I'll never touch a horse until a horse says I can. So I wait for them to put their nose on me, or I put my hand out and I wait for them to acknowledge that it's okay. And if they don't, I say, okay, he's not ready. I'll step back and I'll just keep talking to the owner. Or it's sad sometimes because you just think the owner's creating a bit of stress. So you have to then just wait for them to go, so yeah, can I have a cup of tea? That'd be great, and just kind of get rid of them. And then I go, okay, and again, people might think I'm a complete whack job, but then I ask, I just say, come on then, whatever the horse's name is, show me what you want me to see. And I don't necessarily like actually say it, but I just say it in my mind, show me what you want me to help you with. And they do. You just have to watch those signs. And sometimes when I first started doing it, I was like, okay, I'm doing what you said. I'm going to ask the question. And now I look completely mad to myself. But then something would happen. I'd be like, oh, wow, it did work. I think, did it really work? Was that just a coincidence? But then it happened time and time again. I think, well, it can't be coincidence. So then I'll always ask for permission to come and touch the horse or show me where you want some help. And they will. Yeah. And you just have to have trust in that. A bit like kinesiology, when you learn to have that muscle test. Was that a strong muscle? Or have I just made that way? It's having that belief that it works and going with it. It's the same thing. Because I was the worst kinesiologist in the entire world because I was always like, was that strong? No, it's strong. It should be weak and it's strong. Why isn't it? Why is it like this? Why is it not doing that? And I was like, oh, Lindsay, get your mind out of it. Just shut up and just do it. I was always getting my mind involved, and it's the same thing. You have to just let it go and just see, and again, Leah, when I was out in Australia, showed me loads of things. Like I was a bit like, oh God, I don't know if I can cope with all this. It's a bit too woo for me. But then simple things like offering oils. And I was like, oh wow, and we offered oils to a horse that was really anxious. And then the next time we came down, because she was teaching and I was just watching and observing her teach, came down the next day, and this horse we'd offered the oils to was just chilling out at the top of the field. And I was like, have you seen this? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, no, just from a few oils, that's amazing. So it's just all these things have been put in front of me, and I think, well, I'm going to try that. And it's amazing because they're always open to having that line of communication if you haven't got an agenda.
Sure. Although it's interesting the way you're describing it as a little bit woo to ask a question internally, but from integral theory, from the theoretical basis that I work within my kinesiology, we've got a very good explanation for that. And it's actually very simple in that there's a subjective and an objective part of us, the subjective being our mind, the objective being our body, our behavior, our movement. They can never be separated. And you'll always have a correlate for one in the other. So for example, if I stub my toe, I'm going to make mind frames around the pain and what I did and what an idiot and But at the same time, if I have a thought of anxiety or stress, I will create a correlate in my body. I cannot not do that, So the body wears the shape the mind creates. So because we forget, we've become so language orientated. All of our AI models are large language models. But what we forget is still the vast majority of communication is nonverbal, it's body language.
Right.
So and in kinesiology, as I frame a question in my mind, my body creates a very subtle shift around what that question means for me. And certainly with something like horses, dogs, cats, they are super sensitive to that shift in the body language so much that, of course, when you frame that question, there's a change in your physiology that might be unobservable to you, but is going to be observable to an animal that relies on something like that so much for its survival.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're completely right. I think the fact that I am around a lot of owners who you just, you can't have that conversation. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, how do you, I think that's where I come across, is like you're around people all the time who are like, pardon? You're doing what? Okay, just be quiet, Lindsay. Just say yes, we're all good. Let's do our thing. It's not very often that you're around people who understand that process and you can happily just talk about it and people don't look at you like, are you all right? That's my experience, especially with the horsey world, when you're treating people who, and not everybody is the same. Absolutely, there are some fantastic horse owners out there, but you do get the odd one or two who, can I ride it? Can I do what I want to do with it? If I can't, shoot it.
Yes, it's an it, isn't it? Not a they. It's the beast, it's my object, and I need it to be doing the task I need it to do, like the car or the Hoover.
Yeah, but it's true. And if they don't like the answer that you give them, well, I'll go and find a therapist who will tell me I can still ride it, And it's a bit heartbreaking in some instances. And I've moved away from working in certain areas because I just think, God, I can't keep putting a plaster on for you to keep ripping it off and breaking it. I'd rather work with people who have got like their own little horse who they love and they'll do anything for, and it's just their happy hacker. That's the kind of people I like to go and treat their horses because they actually care. Other people will tell you that it's their life, it's their joy, it's their soul horse. But if you can't ride it, you're going to put it down. Okay, those two conversations go hand in hand for me, but okay, and you can't express your opinion, obviously. So I'm like, okay, you do your thing, I'm going to do mine.
Yeah, that must be really challenging at times as well. I find it sometimes with humans that, they've got an issue and it's really clear where their cause is behind it, but there ain't no way they're going to change that. And, to be able to try and be healthy and clear with them in a positive way is not always easy. And sometimes you just know that you're going to see that person once and you're never going to see them again because they're just not ready to look at the stuff they need to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the other hand of things, completely the other end, I get some amazing students and some amazing clients who I just think, oh my God, you're amazing, way more woo than me, and are actually teaching me stuff. They're like, oh, you've come to me because I really need your help. And I'm actually like, yeah, I think you're actually here to teach me something as well, and always be open to that, So that's what I love about it all.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'm curious as well, is there anything that you wish you'd been taught when you first started doing all of this that's now really essential to the way you practice?
Oh, I think what we're talking about, actually, that feeling, to trust that feeling. And I remember the first time I ever trusted my feeling was when I was treating a police officer, and he really wanted to go on this skiing holiday. And he said he had this shoulder problem, and I was like, you sure you haven't hurt your knee? And I was adamant that the problem was in his knee, and he's like, no. He's like, oh, actually, yeah, but it was like 25 years ago. I was like, God, like, this is your problem. I'm sure of it. And I just went with my gut instinct and did what I felt I needed to do, as opposed to pleasing him and doing what he wanted. And he had a really good result and was able to go on his holiday and was like really grateful and always talked about that. Oh, do you remember that time I had that problem and you said it's funny? And I'm like, I do remember that, So just to trust in myself, and I think we all get a bit of imposter syndrome. Oh my God, I shouldn't do this. Or, oh my God, is that right? Am I really thinking that? To be able to trust that and to follow that a little bit more, rather than waiting until it's been right in front of my face. I've been like, okay, I've got to look at it. But it was just because I wasn't around people who were open like that. So to talk about that was like, I was a bit of a weird one. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah, I think it's all right. Yeah, you're in a good group now. We're all weird together. It's fine. We're all getting a bit normal and normal in our weirdness, I think, these days.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And out of curiosity, where do you see kind of our manual therapy, our Bowen work evolving over the next decade or so? What for you is of real interest going ahead?
Okay. Well, for me, massively, I want us to be up there, seen to be as good as all of these chiropractors, osteopaths, physios, especially in the animal world, because we are tarred with, the weekend massage training course people. And it's like, well, actually, no. And now there are more and more associations realizing that there are people out there who aren't one of these three titles that are very good at what they do. And for me, I just want to bring the standard of training up and recognised, without having to give all our material away, our intellectual property, and because you can't be a BTEC without us owning your material or whatever it is. I just want to be able for the training to have a set standard, so that everybody has to reach this set standard to be qualified. And then, because then that everyone has got an element of that training, and like it is now, to continue doing CPD. But I just think we need to just raise that profile and bring up the stand. And there isn't really anything, is there? Certainly in the animal world, there's nothing governing us that you have to teach this amount or that amount. And I just think we're as good as some of these other modalities. And I just want people to know that, really. So that's my mission, is to get it up there. And, I'm really fortunate that I'm around the likes of Dr. Sharon May-Davis, because there is nobody on this planet that is as knowledgeable as her, in my opinion. Her anatomy on the equine is phenomenal. She's going out to see all sorts of things. She's been out to the permafrost and looking at the bones and saying what was wrong with those horses when they're alive. Like, stuff that you just think, wow, doing all of this research. And we're really lucky, I feel, as Smart Bowen, because she's helped. We've got a program together and said, Sharon, what do you think? This is our program. Said, well, you definitely need to move here because of this and that. Okay, fantastic. So she's helped guide us in what we need. And because I'm very lucky in that I exclusively run all of her equine dissections in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So every year I see in the region of 2 to 4 dissections, and we do a whole horse over 3 days, and it's just phenomenal. I cannot tell you, like, every time I learn something new, and every time I think, oh my God, I knew nothing. And it was really hard for me to begin with. Oh God, I can't see a horse be dissected. Oh my God, I just can't do it. But actually, what I've learned from it and how I can help the living horse so much more way outweighs, oh my God, I'm looking at a dead horse. Because ultimately, every horse that we dissect is a horse that's being put to sleep anyway, or has been put to sleep and we've acquired. But most of the horses we have, we're really lucky in that they are donated to us by the owners. We have all the history. We have all of them in motion, all of that history they've had with the vets, all of what they thought was wrong, or most of the time couldn't find a problem. And we do the detective work, and we watch it unravel, and you just think, oh my God, these beautiful creatures, they hold so much crap. Like, oh my God, this horse was allowing us to ride it still, and it's got blood in the joint, and it's got fractures here, and it's got this and that. And, list as long as your arm as things that are wrong, yet they just keep giving. And like seeing that fascia in a freshly killed animal is unbelievable. Like we've helped skin and dissect horses that have only been put down an hour, or most of them are put down the day before, and we prep them ready for the next day, and it's 3 days of live event. We now have the horse on a standing frame, so the horse is in the stood position, so that you can see the limbs in motion. You can see how the tongue influences the hind leg and that thoracolumbar fascia, and you can just see it, and then we dissect it off and show people how strong this stuff is. And then we've taken off a lot of the muscles along the back, and then we've put them back down, and then we've gone, okay, do your Bowen move there, and my hand's underneath. Can you feel that move? Yes, you can. And it's amazing. It's just amazing. You can't get that anywhere else. And I haven't been to a human dissection, so I can't compare. But I've seen human dissections online, and it's like, it's no comparison. There's just no comparison to what that fascia looks and feels like and sounds like. You just cannot replicate that. The very first horse we ever did was a horse that had been frozen, and the fascia totally different, like completely different. So that is amazing, and I try and get all of my students on the equine side to do a dissection, because Sharon is in a point in her life where she wants to start retiring, and I'm like, oh my God, people, if you have not done a dissection with Sharon May-Davis, you need to, because she's like an artist. The way she does it is, there's always respect for the animal. We have flowers for the horse every time. The horse has a name. The horse goes into the research system, and he's never forgotten, and he's always talked about when we talk about the research. And there's lots of stuff, genetic malformations and all sorts that are rife in the equine industry. That's too much to discuss now because it's so big. But all these things Sharon has identified, and to the point where she's even had death threats because of the things she's uncovered that are threatening, the breeding history of some of these animals. And it's unbelievable. I can't explain how much you learn, and by the end of day one, your brain is fried, and then you've got 2 more days to try and retain some information. Every time I go on, it's amazing. And how different all these muscles are. This big trapeze they talk about in the horse, it's as thin as, like, it's definitely thinner than your finger. It's half the thickness of your finger. And you think, oh my God, what? That's not what we're told, And the nuchal ligament lamella, there's all these lamellas that go all the way to every cervical. No, they don't. They actually stop, at 5, 6, and 7 most of the time, don't have any support. And that's what we see as support. And you see so much of horses nowadays with, arthritis of the lower neck. Well, I wonder why. And people just don't realise that those structures are missing.
Right.
So if you know what's not there or what is there, then you can help the horses that you're treating way more. So although it's a bit gruesome talking about doing dissections, it's so informative. And even if you don't do horses, I think it's worth doing just to see the structure, because you'd never get that experience with people.
Yeah, fabulous. And I take it that this is the work then that we find on your wholehorsehealth.co.uk website. And so people wanting to access that, we will be putting links to connect into Lindsay's work into the video description. So if you do want to follow up more on that, we'll look at that. And I really understand about the value of dissection. I've not had the opportunity yet to go and physically be with human forms and do those dissections, but very inspired by Gil Headley's Integral Anatomy series. And we're really excited because later on this autumn, I get to interview Gil Headley for this podcast as well. So, which I'm really, really looking forward to. Really grateful that Gil's given his time. But, it sounds like you've got that similar mentor there as well with Sharon May-Davis, and, the value that these people are adding to our understanding. Because again, that was kind of going to be my next lead in. What do you think we should be exploring in bodywork that you feel isn't being given enough attention? I'm guessing part of that is that time with actual bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like it. When you want to feel what tissue feels like, and I know it's on a dead horse, so it's not quite the same, but you get to experience so much. And you go, okay, well, this is what the tendon feels like here. Can you feel it right now? Go and feel it on the leg that's still got skin on. Can you now, distinguish what you're feeling? Oh, okay, right, yes. It just helps you understand what your hands are on. Because even when you're there, sometimes you think, oh God, what? Like, oh my gosh, so much to take on, so much. We spend all morning just on the head because there's so many fine, intricate muscles there. Looking at the nerves and how they come and spread through it's just incredible. Just absolutely incredible. And we used to do hearts, lungs, and digestive system, which we haven't done for a long time. But our next event is in November, which we will be doing hearts, lungs, and digestive system because people are like, yes, we want it. And I was like, well, the only reason we took it out is because that was what you kept saying was your least favourite bit, You can't win. So now we're doing it again. But we're fully booked for this year. Sharon will be back next October, where we will have 2 more events. But yeah, I just think it's invaluable.
Yeah.
It's really invaluable when you looking at the tracking, you think, oh wow, is that really what it looks like? Like you have an idea because you think you know what it's going to look like, and then you see it and you think, oh wow. So yeah, I think it is. It's something that everyone should do if working on animals. And so many times I come across people and say, do you want to come? And they're like, I know what I'm doing. I've been in the industry for years or so. And you think, oh, okay. And we have vets on the course who are like, oh, wow, who understand the value of doing a dissection. But again, very few amount of vets that will actually take it on board and be like, okay, we can learn something here, because straight away they're always so defensive that they know it all. I think that's a really dangerous place to be in for anyone. So yeah, I just, to the point where when I first started doing the dissections, I was a bit like, I can't work on horses because like I just don't know anything. When you look at this, it's incredible. And I still feel like that a bit now. I get overwhelmed by it all. It's just so much. But you can only do what you can do with the information you've got. And you can only really change with that. And if you're open to more, it'll come.
I think that's a really big lesson, is that there is always so much more. Like most of us know what we know, and we know the stuff we don't know, but we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And there's such a range of information. Like if anything, I was saying this to somebody the other day, when I was 2 years into being a kinesiologist, I had this sense that I kind of knew a lot, and I felt, quite cocky about that, a bit arrogant about that. And now 21 years in, I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure about loads of stuff. I'm much less certain in some ways, and I'm much more open to there being other ways, other possibilities, other patterns within there that, because we're, humans, animals, ecosystems, we're just incredible things.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so much to learn,
and only so much time. So with that in mind, Lindsay, if people want to learn more about you, where are the best places to send them through to?
So what did we say it was? Bowen-training.com is going to be the new Smart Bowen webpage. It's currently just a holding page, but hopefully that will turn into more information. But currently it's at smartbowen.co.uk, where you can find base information there. Or, of course, my Centre for Wellbeing.co.uk. It tells you all about me, but the Smart Bowen, either one of the two. But they are a work in progress.
Yep, no problem. And we've also got you on Instagram at Bowen Therapy as well. And also, if you want to follow the equine side of things, that's at equine_Bowen.
Yeah. Or wholehorsehealth.co.uk is an easy one. That's my website with everything on. So hopefully that should be updated reasonably regularly.
Yeah. And we'll make sure that we've got links to all of those in the video description for people to be able to access. And I hope that that at some point you and I get come into contact on a course or a training somewhere, because it'd be good to. And I might even bring myself along and do Smart Bowen as well, just to be curious and see that. Like I say, I've got a training schedule that I've got booked out for a little while.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
Maybe
back end of 25 or 26. Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe a
I
dissection.
would do
Yeah.
a dissection.
Yeah, sure. Something really out of my depth. But yeah, that'd be amazing. Lindsay, I really, really appreciate your time today. It's been really fascinating talking to you. Thank you so much. And thank you as well, everybody who's given their time and attention listening along to this BTPA Bowen Therapy Professional Association interview here as we aim to extend the understanding of Bowen out into the world with me, Ben Calder, and Lindsay Holder. Lindsay, thank you so much again, and we'll see you again in the future.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.